What is going on, everybody? What is going on, the Catch fam? My name is John Dawson, and in today's video we are hopping into our week 1 starts and sits for the running back position. I cannot believe that week 1 of fantasy football is finally here. I'm so excited to get into our first positional group of the year. If you guys do enjoy today's content, be sure to hit that like button down below, hit that subscribe button if you are new to the channel. Feel free to drop any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2022 fantasy football season down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Without further ado, let's hop right into the video. All right, starting with Thursday night football with the first game of the 2022 NFL season. Man, we have got a loaded game. What a game. This is going to be the Bills at the Rams Thursday night. I'm so excited for this one. It's going to be a high-powered offensive game for sure, but when I'm looking at this game overall, I'm not completely confident in starting the Bills running backs at all, to be honest. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Singletary's maybe gonna score, or James Cook is gonna do a couple of things, or I actually believe that Zach Moss is gonna be involved in this game as well. So I really won't be surprised if this is just a headache of a backfield to look at from a fantasy perspective moving in to the season. I mean, I don't necessarily, if you're in a deeper league, mind Singletary or Cook in the flex, but overall what I would do is I would just sit back and watch the Bills backfield. I'm sure you didn't spend a ton of draft capital on one of the Bills running backs, so I think they are better suited on your bench. Overall, just sit back and see how this game goes, but also don't be surprised if one of them scores. It's going to be interesting to see how this coaching staff deploys that backfield overall. What we saw in the preseason wasn't very promising from a fantasy perspective. Overall, looking at the Rams, I like Cam Akers as a start. I know I've been a far bigger fan of drafting Darrell Henderson throughout the offseason, but at the end of the day, you probably spent pretty high draft capital on Cam Akers. I like him the most as a flex option, but I don't mind him as an RB2 overall. If you went out and drafted him, you have that firm belief in Akers, and I do think he'll get a bulk of the touches. But as you can see at the bottom of the screen, I think you guys need to keep a close eye on Darrell Henderson. I do personally think he will be involved in this game script as well. I really think Akers and Henderson are going to see a fair amount of touches, but I think Akers sees more touches overall. So at the end of the day, for the Rams, I'll start Cam Akers, but keep a close eye on my boy D Hendo. All right, moving into Sunday's 1 o'clock games, we got the Eagles at the Lions. A fun game in my opinion personally, but overall, I'm sitting the Eagles running backs. This is similar to the Bills situation where I think this is just a committee backfield overall, and I'm not purely confident in starting any of these Eagles back. In a deeper league, maybe you can consider Sanders in the flex, but overall, I mean, I've really been just staying away from the Eagles backfield throughout this offseason. I think that probably there's a good chance one of them scores just like the Bills backfield, but it's just going to be a headache to manage and try and guess. So don't be surprised if you see Kenneth Gainwell involved. Don't be surprised if you see Boston Scott involved. But at the end of the day, I'm staying away from all Eagles running backs in week 1. For the Lions, there's no question about it, man. I'm starting DeAndre Swift. I think Swift is going to have a phenomenal season overall. It does not matter what defense he is going up against. If you own DeAndre Swift, you are starting him, plain and simple. He is going to be an absolute monster, barring any injury this season. I have a ton of firm belief in Swift moving into the 2022 season. All right, continuing our 1 o'clock games, we've got the Niners at the Bears, and this might surprise you with the way I've been treating committee backfield so far, but I'm starting Eli Mitchell in this game. I do think that he will be the Niners RB1 going into the season. But at the bottom of the screen, you can also see that I'm saying to watch the Niners backfield closely, because at the end of the day, we have no idea what in the world Kyle Shanahan is going to do moving into Sunday's action. But I do think Mitchell will get the bulk of the touches, but who knows? I mean, just don't be surprised if he gets Shanahan. That's all I'm saying. But more than likely, Mitchell is probably a flex player for you. There is a possibility he's your RB2. Overall, I think if you own him, you can start him in the flex with some good confidence. If you have to start him as an RB2, I think that's fine as well. In terms of David Montgomery, I do think he's a start this week. Overall, I think if you went out and you spent a 3rd or 4th round draft pick on him, maybe in a deeper league, a little bit of an earlier selection, but overall, I think if you went out and you spent that capital on him, just start him against the Niners this week. Similar to Mitchell, I like Monty more in the flex, but if he is your RB2, then I think overall he's a fine start. I think the Niners are going to have the better game script, don't get me wrong, but I do think overall Monty will see enough red zone action that he has a strong chance to score. But once again, keep a close eye on Khalil Herbert. We have heard a lot of buzz in the offseason that Herbert will be strongly implemented into this offense as well. So start Montgomery maybe with some caution. He's not my favorite running back this week, but like I said, if you spent the capital on him, I think you should start him overall. All right, continuing our 1 o'clock games, Steelers at Bengals, a nice gritty divisional matchup rivalry game. I love this game overall. It's going to be a lot of fun, but this is probably the easiest slide that we're going to have all video long. You're starting Najee Harris, you're starting Joe Mixon. It's that plain and simple. I think without a doubt, both of these backs, barring any injury, are going to finish within the top 10 at the end of the season. They are two of my personal favorite backs at the value that you have been able to select them in the first round. I think Mixon's going to have a heck of a game. I think Najee Harris, despite a lot of the criticism he's received from the fantasy community throughout the offseason, I think he's going to be just fine. If you own Harris, you're starting him. If you own Mixon, you're starting him. Let's move on. All right, Patriots at the Dolphins, another 1 o'clock game here. And this one might surprise some of you guys, but I've got everyone as a starter here. And the main reason is really when you look at Damian Harris for Ramondre Stevenson and then Chase Edmonds of the Dolphins, all of these guys are more than likely flex players for you, dependent on your particular strategy. But for the most part, these guys are flex plays. So if you feel like they are the better flex play, or if you play in a league where you have 2 flexes over, I think they are perfectly fine flexes for the week. The Patriots defense does not look as good as it has in the past on paper, and I think the Dolphins defense might take a step back as well without Brian Flores as the head coach. So I like all of these players this week. I personally feel the best actually about Stevenson and Edmonds in terms of upside, and I like both those guys a lot more in full PPR. If you're in a half PPR or a standard league, maybe there's more reason to go with Damian Harris, but I think Stevenson and Edmonds will have perfectly fine games in full and half PPR leagues, and I think they're all fine starts, like I said, because you probably didn't spend crazy capital on them in your draft, and they're going to end up as flex plays more than likely for you. Sticking with our 1 o'clock games, Browns at Panthers. I'm starting Nick Chubb in this one, and at the end of the day, I do think that the Panthers defense is actually in a position to play pretty well. It's gonna be a fun game, and you got Baker's revenge game. I don't know, I think I could see this one getting pretty gritty, maybe not too high scoring, but I do think that both defenses are going to show up to some degree. But at the end of the day, personally, I feel more confident in the Panthers as a whole. And I mean, come on, like, you're starting Christian McCaffrey. It's not really a question. CMC is in your starting lineup if he's healthy. I mean, it's not a question, right? But with that being said, as much as I like the Panthers, I still think Nick Chubb is a perfectly fine start. I think he's going to have to be the heartbeat of this offense without a doubt. And I'm actually personally sitting Kareem Hunt because I'm a little bit worried about the game script and the Browns offense as a whole. I'm actually very worried about Jacoby Brissett as a starting quarterback. He did not look good whatsoever for the Dolphins last year. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. But at the moment, I just think with where you probably drafted Kareem Hunt, he's just not someone that you need to start this week. And with the other two backs involved in this game, Nick Chubb and CMC, they're obvious must starts with the draft capital you went out and the overall talent and the ceilings they are going to bring on a consistent basis to your fantasy roster. All right, Colts at Texans, 1 o'clock on Sunday. This is a no frickin' brainer. You got JT against the Texans. Are you kidding me? Jonathan Taylor is just going to come out week 1 and absolutely remind everyone why he was RB1 in fantasy football last season. He is going to have a monster game. We can move right along, and it might surprise you because the Colts defense is going to be great this year in my personal opinion, and they were great last year as well and very good against the run. But if you own Dameon Pierce, once again, he's probably a flex player for you, maybe an RB2 on some rosters out there, but overall I would start Dameon Pierce because I do think that the Texans are going to put together some decent drives in this game. At the end of the day, they're going to keep it relatively competitive. I mean, I'm not completely out on the Texans offense. I'm not completely out against Davis Mills. And I think, Brandon Cooks is there. I don't know. At the end of the day, I think that the Texans, I don't think they're going to win this game, but I think that they're going to keep it competitive, and I think that they will make some red zone trips. And I think once they're in the red zone, it's Dameon Pierce time. And don't forget that Darius Leonard is not expected to play in this game. He's going to miss a couple games to start the year, and that really hurts the run game for the Colts. So I like Pierce. I've been on the Pierce hype train. I mean, I feel like to some degree I started the Pierce hype train. I mean, I've loved this guy since he got drafted to the Texans. I've argued all offseason long that he would be an RB1, and really what we've seen over the past couple weeks in the fantasy community, I mean, I'm all for it, other than the fact that I haven't been able to draft Pierce at a cheap price. But regardless, I think Pierce is worth a start, especially in the flex. If you have a 2-flex league, I think he's a perfectly fine flex. I think his ceiling is capped. Don't get me wrong. I'm not expecting a massive performance, but I do like Pierce against the Colts this week at the end of the day. All right, I would watch Nyheim Hines in this game as well. This could be a game script where Hines is a little bit more involved, and it might give us a nice idea of what the Colts are going to do in terms of when they face bad defenses or not so great defenses. And JT is maybe someone who they're trying to not give all that wear and tear to. And maybe Nyheim Hines gets a little bit involved in this game, especially in the passing game as well. So I'll keep a close eye on Nyheim Hines. But if you did draft him, I'm not personally starting him in this matchup in week 1. All right, Saints at Falcons, another 1 o'clock game. No question whatsoever, you're starting Alvin Kamara. At the moment, he is not suspended. At the moment, we don't have a great update on his potential suspension. So you drafted him, you're starting him. He was RB8 in full PPR last season. We all know what Kamara is capable of. I think this is going to be a crap show for the Falcons. I think the Saints are going to have a really, really good game. Overall, Kamara will have a really good week 1. In my humble opinion, this Falcons defense was not good against the run last year, and I don't think they've done enough in the offseason. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We know what Kamara is capable of. He is a must start going into the week. If you own Mark Ingram, you're not starting Mark Ingram. I mean, you could, argue that maybe there's a game script where Ingram gets involved just to see what they have in stake if Kamara does miss some time this year. But personally, I would sit Ingram and leave him on your bench if you did draft him. I would watch the Falcons running backs. I don't have any of them as a start. If you're in a deeper league, if you're in a position where you have to start Cordell Patterson in the flex, I think I'm okay with it, but I think the Saints defense is going to have themselves a day, so I'm not crazy about Patterson going in to this matchup. I mean, I'm a little bit confused because I've loved Tyler Algier. We just talked about Dameon Pierce. Algier's another guy I've loved since the NFL draft, and really Algier just didn't prove, enough in the offseason, or in the preseason, I should say, for me to really feel confident about him going into this matchup. Then he's still got Damian Williams hanging around as well. So I would just hold back on the Falcons running backs. If you have to start Patterson, he's an okay flex, but I really don't like this matchup. So I would essentially set the Falcons running backs, but keep a close eye because we also want to kind of see how this offense rolls out, right? You got Marcus Mariota at the helm. It's going to be really interesting, and we want to see how these different running backs for the Falcons are implemented before we start any of them, especially with not a good matchup overall. The Ravens at Jets. This might surprise you because I think this is a tough matchup for the Jets, and maybe a revenge game script for Joe Flacco, I guess. But I think it's a tough matchup against the Ravens at the end of the day. But listen, hey, if you're on the Breece Hall train and you drafted him, you spent that draft capital on him, I think you should start him, right? More than likely, he should be your RB2. He might be an RB3 or a flex. So I think you'll probably be in a position where he's an okay start this week. And I do think that the Ravens defense is going to have themselves a pretty good day. But at the end of the day, right, I think that there's always opportunities for some garbage time points. And I do think that the Jets will piece together, a couple of drives throughout this game. And I think that Breece Hall is part of this offense that they're going to want to showcase early and often. I would watch Michael Carter. I don't think there's necessarily a reason to start him. I do think Carter will still be part of this offense and will still get plenty of touches, but I'll give the upside selection to Hall as a start over Carter. But don't get me wrong, I mean, if Carter scores, just don't be surprised. He's absolutely a running back for the Jets to keep an eye on and kind of keep watching throughout this game as well. I would sit the Ravens running backs. I'm not confident in starting J.K. Dobbins. I don't even think he's going to be ready for this game. I'm not starting Gus Edwards. I don't think he's going to be ready. I mean, if you own Mike Davis, I guess you could start him, right? But I'm a little bit worried with the addition of Kenyon Drake that it's just going to be really difficult to pinpoint what Ravens running back we need to start, right? This is a committee running back field, and I am really concerned that if I go Mike Davis, that Kenyon Drake is going to score. We might see someone else come in. I mean, last year it was that way, right? I mean, we saw all kinds of running backs. We saw Le'Veon Bell on this team, right? Lamar Jackson is healthy. He's going to eat up some rushing yards and some potential rushing touchdowns as well. I don't know. At the end of the day, week one, even though the Jets were really bad against the run last year, I'm just not confident in starting a particular Ravens running back going into week one at this moment. All right, Jags at Commanders, our last 1 o'clock game going into week one. I've got ETN as a start all freaking day long. I think he's going to have a great day, a great game script overall against the Commanders. And he is one of those running backs, especially in full PPR leagues. He just has a really good ceiling here in week one. I would basically consider him a must start going into this matchup, as long as you're in a full PPR or at least a half PPR scoring league. And this might surprise a lot of you guys. Go ahead and grill me in the comments, but I think Antonio Gibson is a perfectly fine start going into this matchup. Now, I don't know, for a lot of rosters, he's probably your RB3, 4, or 5, right? So I don't know that you necessarily need to start him, but it's a good matchup, right? And with Brian Robinson, unfortunately, not being able to suit up in this matchup, right, I think that Gibson is really your primary back for the Commanders at the moment. I think that McKissick will be involved. Don't get me wrong, right? You can see at the bottom of the screen, I'm saying watch both of these backfields. Watch the Commanders backfield. It's probably going to be a little bit of a headache throughout the season, but I mean, the Jaguars were awful against the run last year, and I think it's a decent start overall in the flex at the end of the day. I actually don't mind Gibson as a start this week because, like I said, you probably didn't spend a lot of draft capital on him, and it's a beautiful matchup, right? On top of that, keep an eye on my guy James Robinson as well. I'm really interested to see how Doug Peterson implements Robinson into this offense. I do think that we'll see Robinson get touches going into the week on top of ETN. So it's going to be really interesting to see how both of these running backs are implemented. They're both very, very talented at the end of the day. So keep an eye on not only the Jaguars backfield, but the Commanders backfield, because we're definitely going to see a committee approach by the Commanders as well. And no, I don't think it's too crazy. Gibson was a top 15 back last year. It's a great matchup. Robinson's out of the picture for a couple weeks, although we're very happy to see that he should be able to play in a few weeks. So, hey, let me know in the comments. What do you guys think about Antonio Gibson going into week one? Our first 425 game of Sunday afternoon, we got the Packers at the Vikings, and I'm saying start everyone in this game. This is going to be a nice divisional matchup. Start Aaron Jones without a doubt. If you drafted AJ Dillon, start AJ Dillon. He's a beautiful flex this week. The Vikings weren't great against the run last year, and I really think this is going to be one of those games where we're going to see Aaron Rodgers really start to rely on this run game and the skill set that Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon both individually offer. I like both the Packers running backs going into the week without a doubt. And if you drafted Dalvin Cook, is it really a question? I mean, I think the Packers defense is going to be pretty stout this year, but at the end of the day, man, if you drafted Cook, he's in your starting lineup. There's no doubt about it. So I'm just saying, plain and simple, start everyone in this matchup. I think this is going to be a really, really fun game in week one. All right, continuing our 425 games, this might be next to the Steelers and the Bengals, the easiest slide of the day, right? If Giants and Titans, right? If you own Barkley, you're starting him. If you own Henry, you are starting him as well. Now, I don't necessarily love the game script for the Giants whatsoever, but at the end of the day, you know, the Titans defense was not great in the secondary last year, and I really do think that the Giants will be able to piece together a couple good drives within this game, believe it or not. I think that Barkley, I mean, come on, man. If you drafted Barkley, you spent that draft capital on him, he's in your starting lineup, especially in full PPR leagues. But I think Barkley has a really nice ceiling for the week at the end of the day, even if the Titans front seven is the better half of this defense. In terms of Derrick Henry, don't doubt the man. I don't care about the foot injury last year. If Henry is on your team, he's going up against the Giants, he's going to have himself a day. I think he's going to remind a lot of fantasy managers why he was a top 3 selection going into last season. I think he's going to have a really good game overall. And it's not really a question, right? If you drafted Henry, you'll start. All right, 425, you got Raiders at the Chargers. And I'm saying start Josh Jacobs, okay? I'm not completely out on Josh Jacobs, to be honest with you guys. You guys can see the bottom of the screen. Watch the Raiders running backs, right? We want to see how Josh McDaniels implements these different backs overall, but personally, I think Jacobs is in line to have a decent game and a good game script. I think it's going to turn into a little bit of a shootout, a nice divisional game, man. I really think some of the matchups within this division is going to be so much fun to watch this year. And I think that Jacobs will get enough of value touches that he can be considered a starter. Hopefully he's a flex option for you, but there are enough 12-team leagues out there that I've seen where Josh Jacobs is an RB2 that I want to remind you guys that the Chargers defense was not good last year against the run or in the secondary, like whatsoever. They added a lot of good pieces to this defense in the offseason, but I just don't know how quickly it's all going to mesh. At the end of the day, I think the Raiders are going to piece together plenty of good drives in this game. They're going to be in the red zone, and Jacobs is going to be one of the guys that they rely on. But I'm definitely interested to see how Zamir White is implemented, and we'll see who else Josh McDaniels decides to play around with. All right, Austin Eckler is, I mean, come on, man. Eckler's a start. Doesn't matter what defense he's going against. If you own Eckler, you're starting him. I think he is going to have a phenomenal year. I really think Eckler could finish as RB1. This Chargers offense is just going to be lights out all season long. I'm really looking forward to seeing them take another step forward behind Justin Herbert at the quarterback position. I mean, nothing else to say. You drafted Eckler, you're starting him. All right, last 425 game of week 1. We got the Chiefs at the Cardinals. I'm going to say start CEH. Go ahead and start Clyde Edwards-Helaire because, I mean, if you have to, right? Like, he's not my favorite start, and he's probably a flex start, right? I think moving forward in a lot of these videos, I'm not just going to have starts and sits and watches. I'm going to have specific flexes, right? But at the end of the day, if you need to flex CEH, I don't hate him in this matchup. I don't love him, but you probably didn't spend a lot of draft capital on him, and he's probably an RB3 for you. So if you feel like you don't have better options, I think he's fine to start because I do think this is going to be a high scoring affair, but keep a close eye on this Chiefs backfield because I do think that other running backs, Isaiah P, Jerick McKinnon, maybe Rojo, I'm not quite sure what's going on with their boy Ronald Jones, but I do think we're going to see a couple different running backs implemented in to this offense. So just keep a close eye, but if you feel like you have to start CEH, I think he's fine in the flex because like I said, it's going to be an explosive game overall between these two offenses. If you own James Conner, I mean, you guys know that's my guy. You're starting James Conner if you own him. I mean, last season, week after week, I was begging you guys. I mean, it was late in the season. I was begging you guys to start James Conner. I think as long as he's healthy, he is a must start on a weekly basis. Is he due for touchdown regression? Yes, I get it, guys. But I think he is a perfectly fine running back to be in your lineup on a weekly basis. I think he's going to have a great game as well. I mean, that's my guy. Come on. You guys, if you're new to the channel, I love me some James Conner. All right, let's move along. All right, Sunday Night Football. We got the Bucs at the Cowboys. This should be another fun one, right? I've got Fournette as a start. I am not worried about some of that offseason drama we saw in the fantasy community surrounding Leonard Fournette. I quite frankly think he has been a steal in most fantasy drafts given where he finished last year. And at the end of the day, the thing that I keep going back to with Fournette is that great chemistry he developed with Tom Brady in the passing game. I think Fournette's going to be perfectly fine in this matchup. And another running back who I think has been disrespected throughout the offseason in terms of where he finished last season is Ezekiel Elliott. At the end of the day, man, I think he's a perfectly fine start. I think his ceiling is a little bit more capped overall. I do think that Tony Pollard is someone we could see playing this game. I get it. I do think that the Bucs defense as a whole is a good unit, at least in the front seven, right? So I get it. But at the end of the day, man, I think Zeke's going to be perfectly fine. I will not be surprised if he finishes the season in the top 12 and the top 15 at the position. So I'm fine with Zeke in this game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. It's going to be a fun shootout, Sunday Night Football. Go back to week 1 of last season. Thursday night kickoff, first game of the year. Who played? These two teams. It was a shootout. It was a really fun game. I don't know if we'll see that exact type of game script, but I do think that we'll see a nice high-scoring affair, and I think that Zeke will be in the red zone and have enough opportunities to score to be a valuable fantasy asset for the week. But keep a close eye on both of these backfields. It's going to be interesting to see some of those youthful backs for the Buccaneers. Rachaad White, how is he going to be implemented? How is that Buccaneers backfield going to look as a whole behind Leonard Fournette? And same with the Cowboys. We do need to keep a close eye on how much Tony Pollard is utilized within this game as a whole. All right, Monday Night Football, we've got the Broncos at the Seahawks, and I'm starting Javonte Williams all day freaking long. The Seahawks were awful against the run last year. They were one of those teams that you could literally stream any running back against and they would probably have a decent outing in fantasy. It's not even really a question for me if you own Javonte Williams. I think he's a must start on the week. Keep a close eye on this backfield. I'm very interested to see how much we see Melvin Gordon implemented into this offensive game plan. I'm very interested to see the split between Javonte and Melvin Gordon, but I think at the end of the day, I'll give the nod to Javonte. I really think he'll probably see at least 60% of the snaps on the season. I just think he is the better running back overall, but just don't be surprised, man. Do you think it's gonna be another frustrating year for Javonte Williams owners? That's coming from a Javonte Williams owner last season who, I mean, this is my keeper going in to this season in my keeper league. And listen, it's just such a good game script that don't be surprised if Melvin Gordon is heavily involved within this game as well. I really think it's going to be a bad day for the Seahawks. A nice revenge game, so to speak, for Russell Wilson. I think this Broncos offense is going to eat against a really bad Seahawks defense. On the flip side, I think this Broncos defense is really going to show up against the Seahawks. So I am sitting Seattle's running backs going into week one. But I think you need to keep a close eye here because there could be some garbage time. There could be one or two good enough drives where Rashad Penny does get into the end zone. So if you have to start Penny in deeper leagues, I'm fine with it. But we need to keep a close eye on what Kenneth Walker does in this game as well and what Pete Carroll decides to do with this backfield. I mean, DJ Dallas looked good in the preseason. I don't know. I just don't feel very confident in Seattle's backfield on top of a really bad game script, in my opinion, for Seattle going into week one. So I'll start Javonte Williams, and outside of that, keep an eye on all the other running backs in this game, and I would personally sit Seattle's backfield moving into week one. And that'll do it for today's video. There are your starts and sits for week one of the 2022 fantasy football season at the running back position. Be sure to let me know in the comments what you guys thought of today's video. Let me know any comments, questions, concerns pertaining to the 2022 fantasy football season. I will get back to you as soon as I can. I am so excited for this season, man. We are going to have starts and sits at every single position every week, and Steven will be dropping his must-start kickers and must-start defenses each week on top of our nightly streams, our fantasy Q&A. It's going to be such a great season, man. I'm so freaking excited. So if you guys did enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like button on the way out and hit that subscribe button. Of course, if you are new to the channel, come join the Catch fam. We would love to have you as part of the ride throughout this season. And with that, I'll say thank you guys so much for watching and or listening, and remember, you saw it here on the Catch.